In this guide I will tell you everything you need to know to get high scores on the no Hesi server. When looking at the map you can see the route we will be using for the first part of this strategy. So let's get right into it and teleport to the 3-lane southbound starting spot. Starting from here allows for easier looping later on, and you suffer less from people that clutter up around the spawn area. Once you teleported, you just want to start driving. I recommend staying on the two most right lanes, since these lanes will only very rarely block you. From driving this route numerous of times, I found out the traffic blocking you in these right lanes is not as random as it first seems. When there is no other players around, the danger spots are easy to learn. The first danger starts pretty soon in the run. Due to the off-ramp here, traffic sometimes acts up. Another factor influencing traffic here as well is the corner. If you see a turn, be careful and look if you can use the shoulder to escape any potential blockages. After surviving this first danger point, the second one is a little bit ahead. The danger here is very specific to this location. Only here will some cars suddenly make a 90-degree turn. You can try and go a bit slower and stay in gaps between cars to avoid this, but if you get hit here, it isn't the end of the world since you're only like 2 minutes into your run. From this point forward, there aren't any real dangers for quite a while. Only the odd corner you might have to watch out for. The next real obstacle you will face are the toll booths. My advice is to make your way to the left and go through the booths without traffic. After going through on the left side, you have to watch out for traffic taking the exit, because they turn quite suddenly, but if you stay far enough left, you should be fine. After this you have two choices on how you want to take the 2-lane. You can take this first exit, but I recommend the second exit. So for now we will go with this one. Before going onto the 2-lane, I recommend moving your speedometer closer to your car, because the risk of going under 95 is pretty big on the 2-lane. Also, make sure you find a little gap so you don't get stuck at this little part here, because you have to wait for traffic to move over so you can overtake on the right. Pro tip, at this part go as fast as possible, since this reduces the chance of traffic blocking you after this corner. After this initial part, you can slot into a gap and go around 97, 98, or you can just try and safely overtake cars at around 150 km/h. But be careful with your braking, because braking too hard can cause you to dip under 95. Now you want to just drive until you come up to this part. Here you have to take a left turn. The 2-lane traffic briefly joins and becomes a 1-lane within this turn. I recommend finding a gap in the traffic before the turn to avoid messy situations with traffic doing something weird. After this small 1-lane part, the traffic becomes 2 lanes again. So be careful with it merging back in again. Your goal is to just make it to the next left turn that is right after. When reaching this turn, make sure you go below 120, maybe even slower, depending on your car, because this turn is quite sharp and has taken me out quite some times, to be honest. After this turn, you have to drive through 2-lane traffic again until you meet this first exit. After taking this exit, you take the following exit, and this makes sure you get back on the 3-lane again. So after driving a small distance after that last exit, you will see the 3-lane on your map. Make sure you take the right exit here and control your speed a little bit, because there is a turn here. Now you're back on the 3-lane again. This way on the 3-lane is quite easy. Just remember to watch out for corners and the toll booth that is also on this side, but this toll booth doesn't have an exit right after, so it's way safer. After driving up this school, you take the big orange spirally exit right here. This will lead you back to the 2-lane. After taking the exit, you have to drive across this bridge. No tips here, just don't mag. Right before the bridge ends, there is a turn which also makes the 2-lane into a 1-lane. So before taking the corner, find a gap so you don't get stuck with the traffic that likes to slow down here sometimes. The traffic going onto 1 lane is something we can actually use here. When you don't like risking your points in 2-lane traffic because of your skill issues, you can decide to just drive 97 or 98, because all the traffic from that turn onward just drives in the left lane. If you don't get very unlucky and there happens to be a spawn in the right lane pretty close, then you can actually make this 2-lane section very easily. Just make sure you don't go under 95. Close to the end of this section you will see this road that goes down and then up again without traffic. But do not take this. It seems nice, but at the bottom of this you will lose your points. But this little no-no road does mark the end of the 2-lane, because pretty soon you will encounter this exit on the left side. This will take you back to the 3-lane again. At this point you will be just before the southbound toll booth. And you can just repeat the route mentioned before in this video. Do you remember this alternative route from early in the video? Let's say you don't want to take the exit at spawn, you can take this instead. Just make your way through the traffic or cruise with around 97 km/h until you come to this point where you want to take the right turn. After making your way through even more 2-lane traffic, you want to go right again at the next junction. Make sure you control your speed at this relatively sharp turn. But now we are at a point which makes this a very risky route. At this point I always like to have a big gap here, but often this is simply not possible. And when you don't have a gap, you have to overtake the traffic. But this section will very often result in two cars next to each other going under 95, making you lose your multiplier or even your points. So I would definitely advise the first route as shown, since it's less dependent on luck. Talking about luck, traffic blocking you, making a sudden turn, or just simply you having a skill issue aren't the only things capable of ending your run. There are 3 things that can also end it. 2 are out of your control, but 1 you can actually avoid. First of all, lag. Even if you have god tier internet, the server will sometimes lag when changing weather. This basic form of lag will result in the traffic jumping back and then forward for a split second, potentially hitting you when you're close to traffic either in front or behind you. Secondly, there are other players. These are very unpredictable and you should just try to avoid them when you're going for a serious points run. Do this by playing at a less popular time or go on a less populated server. Finally, the one you can avoid, the server shutting down. This ended a perfectly fine run for me, and as far as I'm aware, this only happens when the time at the top runs down to about 75 hours, as you can see in the clip. So if you see the time close to the 75-hour mark, just join a different server. I hope the route and the tips presented in this video can help some of you guys to get a nice score. If this video helped you, don't forget to like and subscribe.